Welcome everyone to this second information session about the new partnership on AI, data and robotics in Europe. I hope you all can hear me well, and maybe one of my colleagues can tell me whether the sound is good.
Perfect, Anna. Sound is perfect.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. So my name is Ana Garcia. I'm the Secretary General of one of the organizations involved in the partnership, the Big Data Value Association. And I'm here today just to quickly guide you through the objectives, the agenda, and some practicalities before giving the floor of the speakers of today. First objectives of this information session, we want to give you overall information about the AI, data and robotics partnership. We also want to describe the contents of the current version of the Strategic Research, Innovation and Deployment Agenda, and also explain the process to develop the first official version of this agenda. And finally, we want to inform you about the different ways to contribute and engage in this partnership. To achieve these objectives, we have developed the following agenda. We will start providing an overview of the vision and strategic perspective of the partnership. This will be given by Thomas Hahn, a BDBA president, and also the main contact person for this partnership. Then we will move into the perspective from the European Commission, where we will have the possibility to receive inputs from the 2 units in DG Connect involved in this partnership. Then we will move into providing more information of the partnership itself, and then information about the Strategic Research, Innovation and Deployment Agenda that will be described with quite a lot of details by the core editorial team. We will close with a very short presentation about how to engage in this partnership. We will have 2 different Q&A sessions, one after the intervention from the European Commission, and a second one that will come at the end. So some practicalities to follow this webinar. So for all the participants, you have a control panel. For many of you might appear like still like a bar on the right side or maybe on the left, but you need to click this red arrow to actually extend the control panel. And the control panel will help you to post some questions for the speakers. So as you can see, only the presenters and moderators can speak, but you have the possibility to write your questions. Please do it at any moment, and at the time we go to the Q&A, we will pick up some of those questions, and the rest will be answered through a Q&A document that we have posted on the website, and we will update based on your input. Also, we would like to inform you that the presentations, report, and the video, if the quality is sufficient, will be uploaded to the PPP webpage, and you can see here the link, and this information will be sent to you on the email, so you have all the links with you after this webinar. And saying that, I would like to welcome Thomas Hahn, President of the Big Data Value Association from Siemens, who will share this information session and will introduce us to the strategic part of the partnership. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Anna. Hope you can hear me. I think hopefully the audio connection is good. Pleasure for me to give you a short introduction about AI data robotics partnership, what we want to achieve in a general perspective, what we have done up to now, what are the next steps, and Anna introduced also a short link to the web page. And then it's a pleasure for me to introduce Cecile and Federico from the European Commission, which giving also the perspective in a broader sense, what is needed and what we have, what should be achieved, and what are the goals of this partnership. So as Anna said, I'm with Siemens. I'm a so-called Chief Expert Software Fellow in other companies taking care for IoT technologies. But today I'm in the role of the President BDBA and also the contact person for this AI data and robotics partnership. And we do this together. And when you're looking at the bottom, not only from BDBA perspective, we do it also with Claire, Alice, and Euro AI, significant research initiatives, relevant and very important research initiatives in Europe, and with Euro Robotics and association taking care for robotic stuff, including AI, but also mechatronic and other topics. So that's only now I'm speaking today a little bit as a joint vision for these 5 partners, which you see in the bottom. Maybe Anna, you're just going one slide ahead. For me, it's always important when you're looking at the slide, and I will briefly go through the slide. What I mentioned always is a holistic view. When you're looking at the left side, you see a drone inspecting some kind of pipeline or some kind of thing. And as you see here at the end, and you see this yellow bubble, blue bubble in the middle, is really to create value out of the data which you collect during this inspection, as in this example. And by the way, to create value for us, for the society, for the economy, for the businesses, is by the way also why BDVA is named as Big Data Value Association, and also that we are achieving together with our partners and this value which we can create. But you see this later when we're speaking about the vision and the mission of our topic. But what you have seen here, and you're now looking a little bit on this yellow circle, we have to interact with a lot of other technologies, this meaning connectivity technologies, from IoT, from perception, sensing. We have to calculate this when you're looking to the left side, maybe on the edge, maybe on a cloud solution, depending what are the needs. And of course, we have to have the power to calculate this, to simulate this. So that's the reason, by the way, we have also a very strong interaction with other initiatives from the Euro HPC, high performance computing, when you're speaking about cloud or data infrastructure and so on. For example, with shortly launched Gaia X initiative, I want to give an example, and speaking also about the alliances for Internet of Things, EXO, and so on. So meaning from the technology perspective, we have to look what is needed. And to be honest, if you have seen, I mentioned several European initiatives. We have also good infrastructure where we can interact and achieve something together. Not to forget, and these are the 4 boxes in this picture, that we have to look what are the safety topics which we have to achieve. Functional safety, I'm coming from manufacturing environment, so functional safety is a must, that nobody is hurted when it's close to a machine. Security issue, I mentioned EXO, but also when you're looking at the bottom, what are our values, European values, or our trustworthy. So that somehow is the aspect of the technology and other topics. When you're looking in the middle, we have to look beside functional aspects, the architecture, the communication protocols, and so on. We have to look also at the usage perspective, but Michaela, Sonia, and David will go later inside this. We have some kind of AI framework designed in our SRIDA document, as a strategic research, innovation, and deployment agenda, where we look at it. And last but not least, and this is only to symbolize this, we have to look what we can achieve, what are the impact. And that is from, for example, a so-called business model navigator, what are potential new business models following a concept, for example, in this case, developed from the University of St. Gallen, which is, let's say, at top level. So that's for the middle row. And on the right side, you see, and this for me, to be honest, is one of the really important topic, are more the soft topics, but also speaking about, let's say, a little bit about the attitude. Like mentioned, we have to collaborate with different stakeholders to achieve something really for us jointly. We have to do it in an open, inclusive way. So we are really trying, and that's the reason I'm happy that you can participate to get you included in this topic, and to get also your responses, recommendation, and advices. Of course, we have strengths in Europe, which we can build on it, but we have also to look what are additional new business opportunities, also to the strengths when you're speaking about our backbone in academia, I mentioned before, but also in small and medium-sized enterprises, startups, where several things are ongoing, and we have really a good starting point. And last but not least, focused approach to get a fast impact. So it's at the end, what I'm always describing a little bit as a holistic view, but nevertheless, we will touch later several topics. Maybe Anna, you just go one side ahead. Here are only some statements. I will only briefly touch this. You see here on the bottom from Barry University professor or Andrew, also some statements about what is needed, what are the key stakeholders which have to bring together. Or when you look to the left upper side, there's Hank from Philips, always highlighting from a business perspective, from a company perspective, that artificial intelligence will transform in a fast way and will also give some opportunities. Or when you go on the left side in the middle box, that's my boss. He always saying, okay, we can be and must be also the pacemaker for industrial AI, because we have the network, including the SMEs, research institutes, government, startups, what we can achieve. So that's only to give you some view about what is the thoughts about this, and also the expectation towards our initiative and partnership. Maybe say, Anna said this, we have set up one web page. We have seen in her slides the address of the web page, and you see this is a joint web page. You see here in the bottom the initiative is, like mentioned before, in the European Commission, where we also here have the vision. I will touch later on this, but also interactions, the communication, the documents, and so on. And also, like Anna said, some kind of videos which we are doing will be stored and accessible for all of you on this web page. Maybe Anna, just go one slide ahead. Briefly about the journey, what we have done, you know, at the ICT conference, when you're going to the left side in Vienna, 2018, Robotics and PDBA signed together and document an MOU. You know, this was also set in the publication for AI in December from the Commission about this initiative, December 2018. So, and then we have worked, let's say, straight ahead. We proposed in June a first evaluation document, SRIDA version 1. It was June 2019. We were at the AI Alliance Assembly meeting. You see this picture with Commissioner Gabriel on the top. We extended then the scope. You see here on the bottom some of the initiatives which I mentioned before, like EXO, like HPC for HPC, this is Euro HPC, IoT, to propose a second version, which we published September 2019. And now we are together with our partners towards this, and that's the reason why we speak later, how we're setting up the process to coming to, let's say, and version 3 of the document, of the SRIDA document, and of course, looking forward to have this partnership for AI data and robotics running until end of this year. So this is roughly in a nutshell the journey which we have up to now taken. Of course, the documents and other informations are available, as said before, also via the joint web page which I just shown before. Anna, maybe just going one slide ahead. Okay, here very brief, very quick. Here you have the links to the documents, an overview, the different interventions, the versions of the SRIDA document, also some kind of other papers, MOUs, which you can look at, and it's only for your information. Maybe Anna, just go ahead one slide. Now, like mentioned before, for me it's always important to have, first of all, that we have a joint vision where we are working in this partnership towards this. And in the bottom you see also, and I want again highlight the topics a little bit, what I said on my first slide. You know, the vision is really to boost European competitive social well-being and environment aspects to in a world leading research, developing and deploying for AI data robotics in and for Europe. for Europe, because as you know, we are well aware that we have also can ship, and we do this quite successful in a lot of domains. Therefore, we have also a basis in doing this and building on around the world. And as said before, and that's the reason we have to do it with a certain attitude. There are the values which we fulfill and follow, but also openness, inclusiveness, new partners. I have shown you some aspects also to addressing new businesses. It's not only about that we're looking at our strengths, but also what are also as a future opportunities, trust to each others. And we're looking also that we have a well-balanced approach for the different verticals, but also the mixture between research and industry, and in research also the mixture between big companies, small, medium-sized enterprises, startups, new business at the high-tech companies, and so on. Because at the end, we have to have a complete addressing this complete picture for this AI, data, and robotics partnership. So maybe Anna, just going one slide ahead, please. So general perspective, objective, you see this later, and this slide will be catched up also later when we make the deep dive about the SRIDA document taken care and presented from Michaela, Sonia, and David. You will see this again as a slide, but really we have to address what is, let's say, our topics in Europe regarding AI, data, and robotics technology now in and for Europe, meaning we are also open to include partners from outside Europe, but nevertheless we have to look what we can do in and for Europe. We have to establish on the one other side, we have excellent research, we have also excellent businesses in different domains, but we have to enhance or establish this further, our leadership in these domains. And last but not least, for the different topics like mentioned before, also in the global, that's the reason why I phrased it always in and for Europe, also our position of Europe in the world. That's in a nutshell as a brief intro. And it's a pleasure for me. We have after the session the presentation from Cecile and Federico and question and answer session. And please file your question inside the chat. I've seen one of the other question is coming, but we have after the two sessions, two presentations from Cecile and Federico, and a question and answer session. So many thanks. And now I'm handing over to Cecile, and I think, Cecile, you're taking over the screen. And you're not, have only to switch on your microphone.
Good morning, everybody. Do you see the presentation?
We can see and hear you. Perfect. And
okay,
seeing the presentation. Both.
And the presentation, that's the most important thing. Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to also present our perspective on the PPP. So, as already announced, we have two units dealing, taking care of the PPP in the Commission. I'm part of the Robotics and AI unit, and my colleague Federico, which will talk after, is dealing with the data part. But we work closely together and with the private community. So it is, every word in that slide is important. The public part is the Commission, the private part is all of you, the community. The partnership is the key thing which glues all together so that we can achieve something important in Europe. And the three pillars, AI, data, and robotics, are all equally important. So I will try very quickly to give high-level message, which are very important from our perspective, and what are we expecting to build together with you. So first thing, what is very important, and the reason why we want to have a PPP, it's this partnerships. So we want to secure a long-term commitment from all parties, so the Commission and the private partner. And it is key because we want to work together with you to define a strategy. So, and on the public side, this is the Commission, and on the private side, so the private partner is the whole AI and growing communities, including all the stakeholders, so the academia and the industry for sure. So these are the ones developing the technology, implementing the technology, but it is a growing community, and we have to make a constant effort to bring together the newcomers, the one maybe the more traditional industry, which are not IT at all, and it is important because they're the user of this technology. And if we want to, to have this sovereignty and the leadership in AI, we need to bring them on board and help them to adopt the AI technology. So this is very important to have them on board. To do what? This partnership has one of the objectives is to define the strategy for Europe in AI. So it's not only defining a theory, it's also implementing and being committed to it. So it's we expect engagement from all the partners in this adventure, and it's not only to limit inputs to be given to the Commission to define part of the program of Horizon Europe. No, it is about defining altogether a strategy for Europe in AI, data, and robotics. So it is important to have this global view. What is important for Europe in AI? Where do we need to focus? Where do we need to invest together? What should be done in every part of the program? Some of them, of course, have to be defined for this Horizon Europe program, but what else needs to be done? How do we coordinate with other activities, such as in the member states and so on, in the other parts of the program as well? So that's why it's important to have this global strategy. And it's not just limited to the intersection between the three domains of AI, data, and robotics. No, it is an inclusive strategy, bringing the whole of these elements and defining what needs to be done in each and what needs to be done together at the intersection as well. And what is key is to define what needs to be done in terms of research, to keep excellence in Europe, innovation, and deployment. And this is key to have the strategic autonomy in Europe in this domain, to make sure that we can master the development and the deployment of this technology in Europe, following our value and the way we want to address them, and to see how they respect our value in Europe. Okay, so, and we want, together also with the strategy, to make sure that Europe is attractive for both the scientists and the investors. So Europe to become the place to be in this domain. So I want also to stress the importance of the three building blocks. So we want to really bring the best of these three communities. We have a very strong community in AI, in data, and in robotics. And all together, we expect that joining their effort, they will be much stronger and have much more impact than taking them apart. Not only because they have very strong ties between the three of them, but also when they join their effort, they have, on the one hand, the possibility to mobilize much more communities, because each of them has their industry, their academia, and their user community. But also, when you join your effort, you can also offer to the user community a much more compelling offer, and building on the strengths of Europe as well. The importance is in this partnership to mobilize the whole community. It's not a closed club. It is an open initiative where we invite and we want to mobilize as much as possible all the actors, and not only the developers, but also the user industry as well, and all the relevant additional stakeholders that have a contribution to make. And it is important to make sure that, for instance, we are not locked into the technical aspect only. We have to understand the acceptance problem, and also the issue regarding the automation, for instance, and how the workers will accept that, and so on and so forth. The educational aspect. So we expect then that the PPP will also link to standardization bodies and to civil societies, unions, education, and so on, to make sure that we have a very solid strategy for Europe again, and not just for the program. So a very important point, we want to build and continue the effort that have been done already by BDVA and e-robotics in the past, but this effort needs to continue to scale up the community also now together with the AI community. But since any industry is going to be impacted by this technology, it's very important that all of you, all of us, joint effort and try to attract and mobilize those user community. We see when you see all the most important industries in Europe, most of them do have some AI activities, but not all of them are yet part of the PPP. So this is an effort to be done to bring them on board so that we can join our effort and make sure we have a very strong AI community in Europe. And we also expect to have the SMEs and the startups having a key role in this endeavor as well. So the other aspect is joining forces. So we already mentioned on the private part. On the public part, we also want to join the effort with the member states. And this is what we are already doing in our policy initiatives in the coordinated plan. So we are in very close contact in the context of AI to develop together synergies among our activities and member states' activity. And we expect to also see that happening in the context of the PPP. So make sure that the strategy understand what's happening in the member states and try to develop synergies and join forces where possible. So that is another dimension which we feel it's important, so that all together in Europe we are stronger as well. Now, regarding also the policy aspect, so we've seen that we've published the white paper on AI. This builds on previous communication and the first strategy we have published in 2018 on AI. And this new white paper on AI has two main pillars. One is building an ecosystem of excellence, and there you can read that the PPP has a prominent role there to ensure that we have this commitment from all parties to define the strategy, to invest together. I remind you that in the publication of April 2018, we say that in Europe, we want to join our efforts so that all together we reach a 20 billion investment in AI, data, and robotics per year. So not only the Commission investment, of course, but joining the member states, the European investment, but also the private partners. So, partners. Yeah. So this is one part of it. And the second part of the white paper is building an economy of trust. So this is for sure the regulatory aspect, but this does not develop in the theory only. So we need the community to help us developing and implementing this regulatory framework. What does it mean, for instance, in terms of standardization? There is the aspect of robustness, accuracy of the system. How can we implement what the policy requirement will come up with? And finally, the implementation and funding activities, where we expect the strategy to be to have a very big influence on, because we need priorities coming from that to derive these activities. So in the future, in the coming framework program, we have AI in two main, let's say, part of the framework program. One is Horizon Europe, so mainly it's a continuation of our current Horizon 2020 framework program for research, development, and innovation. So we will continue doing similar things: research, technological development, demonstration, piloting, proof of concept. So as you know today, but we have created a new program, which is the Digital Europe program, and AI is one of the 3 technologies that have been prioritized there, given the importance of the topic. And in that framework, we will have a pillar on data. We will have a pillar on AI on demand platform, so a toolbox to have a central access point to all the AI tools, all the robotics tool, all the data tools for the community to help them deploying the technology. And we will also have testing and experimentation facilities, because any AI-based system which has some degree of autonomy need to be tested in real environment before being deployed. So these are the 3 main activities. And I want also to remind you that in the testing experimentation facilities, it's AI, data, and robotics component are very much present there. So it is different that research, development, and innovation. It's about capacity building and deployment. So hoping to bridge the gap between what we have done in the past, research, development, innovation, and really the deployment. In addition, there will be a pillar on skills, where again, the AI, data, and robotics skills will be addressed. And finally, a pillar on boosting deployment, and especially with a specific focus on helping SMEs to deploy this technology, and also the public sector. And there we also expect to have a big role from the digital innovation hubs, with some of them will have also focus on these technologies. So in a nutshell, these were the main message I wanted to pass. And I thank you for all of your work to make it happen in Europe. Thank you.
Many thanks, Cecile. As said, I think we hand over to Federico, and then we have a question and answer, and I'm looking in parallel a little bit into the question we got, and try to pre-select or to try to think about some kind of answer. So Federico, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. So let's start, and I'll try to be brief, because I think Cecile has done a very comprehensive presentation. So if you start with the next, I will give you a broad view on what we are going to do and what are our major way of thinking, and how we want to proceed in this field. So it will be a bit broader, but I think, as Cecile has pointed out, that the role of the PPP will not be only on Horizon Europe, but also in other initiatives that the Commission is carrying out. Well, the first thing is probably you have seen him and you know him. If you do not know him as Commissioner of the Internal Market, you know him as a CEO of former CEO of Atos. One of the major, the first thing that Thierry Breton said is that he wants that SMEs and European businesses will have data, high quality data, and create value for Europeans, including by developing artificial intelligence application. This is our starting point. And if in the next slides is what he keeps saying is that Europe has everything to play for. So many times we hear, no, but the concentration of data is not in Europe. What Thierry Breton keeps saying is that, and what we believe is that since of the major exponential amount of data that is created, it's true that we might have, in a sort of sense, lost the battle with for using the data and getting the data for social medias, but there is all the entire data produced by the industries, and the new digital transformation of the industries, where Europe can play a major role and can be extremely competitive. And this is why what we want to do is, with policy action and also with funding and investment, to promote the access, use, and sharing of the data produced by industries, or also personal data, but in a different way, of course. Let's change the slides. Another important point that has been recently adopted by the Commission is the entire recovery package. What we say there, and I want to highlight in these slides, is that there are two major points which they call twins initiative. One is the green and the other one is the digital transition. So in order to strengthen Europe's competitiveness, resilience, and the position as a global player, the Commission believes that there are two major initiatives, activities that we should carry out. The first one is the green, so the transition to green, but the other one is the digital transitions. And the digital transition has got four elements: investing more, better connectivity, so investing in the 5G, a stronger industrial and technological presence. Again, there we focus on industrial, a real data economy, so foster the economy of data, the sharing of data, sharing which is also trading of data, so developing system that data can be used in order to create growth, and a fairer and easier business environment. Next slides again, just to present you the entire overview of what we are thinking of. It's something that came just about during the COVID crisis. It's an MIT technology review survey where they surveyed more than 1,000 companies, major companies in various sectors, and it's a global survey. So I think 1/3 of these companies are coming from Europe. And it's giving you a flavor on what the industries are thinking, on what are the major constraints that for using, for example, AI. And there I've highlighted those ones where the Commission, in my opinion, can and would like to have an impact and try to support and solve, or try to solve these major constraints. The first one is the data, quantity, quality, and availability. The shortage of internal data scientists of AI and AI developers, the regulatory and security concerns on to share data. When can I share the data? When can I share the data that I held, but it's not my data? And then the high cost of technologies. So having this framework of various initiatives, in the next slides, presents what was the European strategy for data. So in the European strategy for data, we've got 4 main points. What we can do is that we want that the data can flow within and the EU and across the various sectors. We want that there is a high availability of quality data to create and innovate. Everybody knows that without high quality data, AI training, it's going to be difficult. We want, however, as Cecile was presented, that the European rules and values are fully respected when sharing the data and when using the data. And then what we want to make sure is that the rules for accessing, using the data will be clearer and clearer, and there will be also governance mechanisms in order to make sure and to create the trust between who's sharing the data and who's using the data, so that they can safely use the data without fearing that they are going to lose something in sharing the data. Next slides. So the problems that we have identified are again here. I will not go into much detail since I do not have too much time. But what we have done with the Open Data Directive is, for example, tried to have more public data available. There is also a low uptake of voluntary data sharing among companies, and there is no clarity on the use of private sector data for the common good. There is also an infrastructure problem because there is again no lack of European data processing storage solutions. And there is absence of comprehensive data governance approaches that address not only the technical barriers but also the legal barriers. And as I was saying, there is lack of skills, and the data market is really fragmented. So let's move to the next slides. Our solution is presented basically in these 4 pillars. So we are going to work and to define a new legislative framework for the governance of European data spaces, and try to identify cross-sectoral measures that will support the access and use of data. We have also announced an investment of 4 to 6 billion on a high impact project of European data spaces. It's including member states, so it will be something like 2 billions, depending on the financial framework that is being discussed currently. 2 billions on investment from the Commission on supporting these high impact projects. There will be also activities in order to empower individuals and investing in digital skills, and that will be the rollout of European data spaces and high value data sets. So the next slides present what will be what we think the creation, what will be the common European data spaces and how it will be basically structured. So in the data strategy, we have identified at least for the beginning 9 different data spaces that we would like to create. A data space is it's not a platform, it's a place where data can be shared, but not only open data and public data, but also data held by the private sector, and it will not be shared freely and openly to everybody. But what we would like to have is exactly a governance so that data can be shared in a trusted way, in a way where the data holder and the data holder will have full control on where the data, how the data is shared, which data is shared, and for which purposes. So we want to create an environment of trust where the data can be shared. As a layer, we've got also an infrastructural layer where we are going to work in order to create a federation of cloud infrastructure and services, where we are trying to federate all the European cloud service provider, so that we will have also a European offer of cloud services that will assure the strategic autonomy and what we call data sovereignty, so the full control of the data and who's accessing the data. As Cecile was mentioning, we are going also to offer the possibility of using the data, analyzing the data through the high performance computing or through the eye testing and experimentation facilities. And I think with this one, I finished. But what I want to stress is what would be the role of the PPP. So the role of the PPP will not only support the definition of the work program, the initiative in Horizon Europe, but as Cecile was saying, we want also to tackle, and the PPP, although maybe not officially, but we will be one also the reference point for the creation and for the deployment of the activities that are done in Digital Europe programs, especially for the creation of the data spaces, the common data spaces. The main important thing is that what we need to do together is really identify the priorities to support the digital transformation of our economy and the society. We are in a period where we are expecting a major economic crisis, and what we need to do is to invest in the best way to have a major impact of our activities and initiatives. And therefore, what we are expecting to you in establishing this dialogue is really to have your input on which are the best way to invest the funding that we have been able to identify and and have both on research, but also, as I was saying, in the deployment, in supporting, as I was saying, the growth of our European economy. And with that, I finish. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Federico, and many thanks also for the huge amount of questions we get. I will start answering one of the questions because I've looked a little bit around. We'll catch up something. First of all, the documentation slides and so on will be available. This was one question. Yes, we will share it. They will be available, so you get the information. Second, and the questions we get also from the previous session, you know, so it's the second with a similar content. Also, we have done roughly 10 days ago a similar information session. So this is the same content. We will also collect all the question and answer, and also collect the question and answer as good as we can with the topics. So we provide you every information, I think, which is available and which you have seen, and of course catching up the question. So this was some kind of general comments, and there were several comments about one is maybe regarding my presentation or slide about the holistic view. The comment said to focus on AI and data is too narrow. No, that was not my intention. And maybe I miscommunicated. That's the reason why I really put the circular where we have the high performance computing, the embedded topics regarding AI, also some kind of mechatronic robotics aspect, but I'm very sure David can address this much better like I'm. And of course, we are also addressing some kind of processor hardware development initiatives. That's the reason why we are, for example, in the Euro HPC area, we are in the advisory committee, meaning we trying, and I like the question because this gives us always some kind of hints where we have some gaps. We are trying to cover the complete picture, what is needed for this AI, data, robotics, in brackets, embedded AI aspects in total, including hardware, mechatronic, and also know-how, vertical know-how aspects. Then there was another question regarding startups and SMEs, how to include. There was for a startup a specific question. They need, you know, expertise, knowledge, and money. One issue is, of course, expertise. We are setting up an ecosystem. You know, when we are bringing these 5 parties and others together, we have a new full bunch of different knowledge pools, so to say, and of course, which we are providing to you. And you can expect in this ecosystem, you get also to link to funding, maybe the public-private side, but just Cecile and Federico mentioned before, but you get also access to the community. That's the reason, by the way, I'm also highlighted that we have also to look what are the aspects for the impact. Then was another question regarding fundamental research. I make it easy. I will forward this to Michaela later. I think she can say some words that how we are addressing fundamental research. And maybe then was a question which I was just handing over to Cecile and Federico. I think there was one question regarding why to focus on the 27 member states and not to make a broader topics. There was a 44 states mentioned on the MFF. Maybe you can answer this, Federico or Cecile?
I don't know if Cecile wants to answer the question. Well, we are going to focus on the European countries participating in the European part of the European Union, of course. For Horizon Europe and the initiative that we are going to fund through Horizon Europe, of course, there will be associated countries that can participate as well in the Digital Europe program, although at this stage, I don't know if we are yet sure of which will be the countries participating. This is our answer, but as I was saying, the budget is the budget of the European Union, so we will focus on these initiatives and also all the legal instruments that we are going to adopt are focusing on the European Union and the member states of the European Union, if that one was the question.
And maybe to add, in the ecosystem, for sure, we will have also other partners participating, working with us. That's not the issue. So the openness for membership is given. Of course, they have to fulfill, let's say, the values, the articles, the status, and so on, which is, of course, our European context. Maybe, Cecile, do you want to add something?
No, perfect. I think Federico gave all the elements on that. Yeah. The important is to have this autonomy of Europe. What is important for Europe? How do we situate in the world? And that's also up to the community to help making it happen.
Mm-hmm. And to be honest, like mentioned in my picture before, we can really build on the strengths in Europe. There was some companies named in the robotics area where we have a strong footprint in Europe, and but also when you're looking in the embedded AI stuff, including the vertical know-how, we have really a good basis to build on. I have no doubt about this, but we have to be open. It was also referring to the startup question, to new business ideas. Then, Federico, there was one question regarding the 4 pillars you mentioned.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, you got it, because I have the parallel to look inside the questions I got.
I fully agree on the fact that trust and fair treatment of data, both private data, not only personal data, is one of the strengths of Europe. It's the place, Europe, where you can be sure that your data, you've got all the legal instruments to make sure that your data is treated in a fair way. And this is what we are going to strengthen also in our initiatives and in our activities. One of the activities for the use of personal data that we are looking closely is the emergence of organizations that are managing your data, and the permission that you provide to your data, like mydata.org, the permission that you can give to users of your data in a very close way. Another thing that we are looking is to see how the portability article of the GDPR, where as you know, you can request any organization that holds your data, I don't know, Facebook or even a car company that held your data, to provide you the data, all the data that you have. One of the points is that instrument is relatively little used, and it's difficult sometimes to get the data in a format that it's usable for the users. So we are going to look again there in ways to operationalize that specific article, so that really European citizens or organization that wants to apply our rules and values will have full control and access to their data. And this is why I agree and I fully support. It's not part of the Recovering Europe Competitive Advantage, but if you go through the data strategy, it's written there, and I'm sure it's also part of the AI white paper, this major intention of keeping our values and maintaining our values and strengthening our values, because we believe they are one of the major strengths of Europe.
Okay, perfect. So now I have to take care. Thanks, Anna, a little bit on the timekeeping. There are several questions which we answered, like I said before, in written, available to you, also regarding when will be the first calls for the different verticals outside, or how the cooperation with the European Open Science Cloud, only to catch 2 of the topics. But as said before, we are quite open, and that's the reason why I highlight all this attitude in collaborating with us initiative. But now I want to hand over, because I think you get some additional comments about engagement, and maybe we can ask at the end, Cecile, about the first call. Cecile and Federico will ask the first calls out of some of the timeline. But now I want to hand over to Sonia Michaela and David, and Michaela, like said, maybe some words about fundamental research, and David, maybe some words about the robot and mechatronic aspects. Thanks. The floor is yours. Sonia will start.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for the introduction. So Michaela, David, and me, we will present the SRIDA core editorial team. And I think what we want to show with you is to give you first an overview of the new partnership, and then also dive deeper in the SRIDA and how we will engage everybody here. So you see that we do not want to be a closed club, we want to be open. And for that reason, this webinar is of high importance for us. I think in order to, so we talked a lot about the what. Now we would like to share a little bit how we are doing this. So basically, what are the activities we want to bring forward? And for that, I think to have a look at the partnership's general objectives, as Thomas already mentioned them, is a good way to start. So basically, in terms of, we talked about autonomy and also that we ensure the European Commission. So one of the objectives is really to secure European sovereignty over AI, data, robotics, technology, and know-how. We need to think about technology innovation. So here the objective of the partnership is to establish European leadership in AI, data, and robotics, which has also high socio-economic impact. And then in terms of market and society, I mean, we want to reinforce strong global competitive position in Europe in these three areas. So this is more or less like what we saw that is the general objectives which we would like to address. And as Cecile was already mentioning, I mean, AI, data, and robotics is affecting many industrial sectors, right? So Anna, maybe the next slide, where we would like to share with you a data we got from IDC. It's about the financial investments in AI, data, and robotics, and what it shows you that the opportunities exist across all sectors, right? All sectors are starting to invest. And for that reason, the partnership will focus on cross-sectorial challenges. So there's no sector in particular, but also to ensure that cross learning across the sectors will be possible. In order to leverage all these, to boost all these opportunities, the idea is that we need to overcome quite a range of adoption challenges. And the core message, what we are sharing here, is that we need to ensure open collaboration. So what you see in terms of the adoption challenges needs that several stakeholders, wide range of stakeholders, will collaborate together. It's on the one side that we need to defragment the research landscape, bringing the three technology areas together. So we see here high synergies. We need to ensure that basic infrastructure, so all the level key enabler for AI, data, and robotics are available. This includes access to the AI, data, robotics infrastructure to boost standardization, to enable the testing environments are enabled, to ensure that we get alignment of the policy and regulation frameworks and stuff like this. We also talked about the acceptance, social trust in AI, data, and robotics, that skills are available, and this includes skills and know-how on all levels. And also not to forget that there's also, if you want to deploy the technologies, quite some complexity involved. So basically to understand in terms of bringing technologies together, and also to understand the complexity of AI in industry and the public domain. So how there will be transformation of sectors. So how can this be done in a efficient, smooth manner? In order to address these adoption challenges, we thought about how can we move forward. So you see here a quite detailed graphics about our objective tree. You see down here the three general objectives: technology sovereignty, technology innovation, and also the competitive situation in Europe, which we would like to achieve. So these are our general objectives. And then you see on the top the different activities we think are needed to move forward, and how to ensure that operational and specific objectives can be met. I want to dive deeper into the operational objectives due to the reason that I think it gives you the best understanding of what are the concrete things we plan to do. So what are the activities we are planning to do in order to ensure that the operational objectives can be addressed. First area where we will invest in is to ensure that lead and that research excellence in these three areas, AI, data, and robotic, that this will be supported and that we ensure that Europe will develop a leading position. So this includes activities in the individual technology areas, but also in the combination of the three technology areas. Second, we aim to support use cases that allow us to build integrated systems around AI, data, and robotics. So it's more or less like build upon the technical advances in the three areas and combine these technologies and align them with European strategic challenges. So bring this forward that the value can be generated. We will also ensure that the collaboration with other horizontal and vertical communities will be supported. We see that there will be common areas between the AI, data, and robotics partnerships and the other partnerships. So basically, we expect that joint action should be encapsulated and brought forward. SMEs and startups, Cecile mentioned this already before, this is a central element. We need to stimulate creation of new startups, and we need to ensure to support that SMEs become more competitive. Then the next one is about the uptake in all sectors. So basically here the idea is to build connections to the vertical market. It's about exploring scalable use cases. It's about delivering demonstrators, and it's about large-scale pilots. Skills was already mentioned before. So we need to understand skill challenges and to understand what action needs to be taken that we get a stronger educational level in AI, data, and robotics. And this includes all levels of education, right? And then in terms of socioeconomic challenges, I think this was already mentioned before, we need to ensure that activities contribute, and now COVID-19 crisis, to environmental challenges, so that these aspects are really addressed. We need to work, we aim to work to align legal foundation and standards. So here it's the objective is to enable smooth translation of innovation into the market. And last but not least, so this is the overarching operational objective, is to build an effective, accessible ecosystem. So this activity, the webinar today, is one step exactly towards this direction, so that people can work together in an efficient manner. As these quite a number of operational objectives, we also thought about how to think about the investment areas. So just to give you a small overview of this area, the first investment area is in mobilizing the European AI, data, and robotics ecosystem. So aim is to join forces. And I mean, this includes on the one side, the research communities. We need to shape together the different AI, data, and robotics communities. We need to shape strategic challenges, right? It's about working together with other horizontal partnerships. We need to strengthen the synergies between the different technologies, collaborating with vertical partnerships. Access to end users is for AI, data, and robotics very central in order to shape the opportunities, right? And then in terms of regional and national and European initiatives, we need to federate all the efforts and investments. So this is in terms of joining forces. Second area will be about skills and acceptance. So here we aim to build a strong AI, data, robotics skill pipeline, and this throughout our network. As said before, we need to understand the skill requirements and then also address supply and demand and promote career paths throughout the AI, data, and robotics ecosystem. Engage with citizens to ensure that the adoption of the technology will be addressed and promote also diversity. The third investment area is about innovation and market enabler. So here, the main area will be to stimulate industrial investments. How can we do this? It's different activities in terms of aligning with end users, to promote experimentation, and to connect to infrastructure and to finance. Fourth investment areas will be about guiding standards and regulation. We need to build trust, and we need to create a level market in AI, data, and robotics. So this includes the promotion of standards. This includes the engagement with regulators and the communication with policymakers, so that there's a vivid interaction. And then it also includes the promotion of sandboxes, guidelines, and. Last but not least, and this also leads me over to the SRIDA part, we need to promote research excellence. One important aspect is to boost the academia and industry collaboration. This we will be doing by jointly implementing the SRIDA. David and Michela will talk more about the strategic research, innovation, and deployment agenda of the partnership in AI, data, and robotics. It will be very central that we promote collaboration, that we promote excellence, and that we ensure that industry is connected with research. So here it's a great potential, and we need to move forward like this. This leads me over to David. So David, you will now introduce the SRIDA of the MU partnership in AI, data, and robotics.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. So the SRIDA is the expression of the joining together of the three communities. It is designed as a document which will bring things together to create a common framework and a common terminology within which we can all work, and which we can describe the strategic elements and the technologies that we wish to develop throughout the partnership. So this common framework is broken up into three parts that you can see here. And that provides us with a set of places where we can put different levels of commentary about the content and functioning of the partnership. So next slide, please. Next slide, please.
David, is already the next slide. I don't know
okay, sorry,
it.
Delayed from my seeing. My apologies. So the first of these is the framework, the AI, data, and robotics framework, and this sets out the fundamental things that are around in the marketplace around Europe, in which we have very little influence. So as we know from the work of the high-level group, fundamental human rights and fundamental European rights principles and values are at the core of a lot of what we've been talking around the trustworthiness of AI, about the way that it should operate, and how we define a European AI, data, and robotics. Also mentioned this morning, the critical part of this is that it's value-driven, that it is going to enhance business and society and people, and so those are important parts of how AI, data, and robotics should be targeted and approached within Europe. And then finally, the policy, regulation, certifications, and standards elements. These impact everywhere. They impact all the technologies. They impact all of the application areas. So it's very important that we understand that framework, that where we can influence it, but it is something that is given, and it is a part of the framework in which the partnership needs to operate. The second part is the ecosystem enablers. So obviously the partnership is around developing innovation, about bringing technology through from first and early stage research all the way through to deployment, And so that requires an ecosystem, and it requires structures around the innovation and research systems in order to ensure that they are efficient and that they operate. And obviously public investment in that is critical, as is private investment in making sure that this is a functioning and efficient system around it. And you've heard some of that this morning from both Cecile and Federico about how the Commission sees those infrastructures being built. For example, things like digital innovation hubs, experimental deployment zones, data spaces, etc. So we have this broken down into 3 areas: skills and knowledge. We're very conscious of the skills problem within Europe, right across the board. So it's not just about more PhD students at one end, it's an entire range of the skill set right through the whole spectrum that's required to adopt these technologies and ensure that they're efficiently used within industry and society. Data we've already heard about significantly this morning, so I won't dwell on that, but it's obviously very, very important both to AI, both for robotics, in terms of both generating and receiving and processing data in order to guide the way that systems operate. And experimentation and deployment, similarly, very important that we have safe spaces in which to experiment. We have regulatory zones where we can explore how things can be turned into business models and made into improvements in the marketplace. And then finally, on the 3rd section, the next slide, we talk about the cross-sectorial technology enablers. So these are the common areas where where the different aspects of the 3 different areas come together. So we have sensing, measurement and perception, continuous knowledge, etc., and trustworthy hybrid decision-making, interaction and systems. And these are all the core elements that come together in order to create systems. And obviously the technology development is a core part of what certainly the work programs will deal with, and so it's a core part of what the robotics and AI and data communities will deal with in terms of their research profiles and their innovation. So having a common view on where the challenges lie, where the opportunities lie, and how these different areas will progress, and how they will impact on marketplaces, and how they will impact on services and on products, is obviously a very critical part of coming together, joining up the 3 communities in order to project this combined force in terms of creating the partnership. So I'm going to hand over to Michaela, who's going to talk about the structure of the document.
Okay, thank you, David. Can you hear me, I hope?
Yeah.
So now I would like to show you a little bit of the content and the timeline that we are following. So we are now in the process of shaping the 3rd version of the SRIDA to align it with the PPP proposal, and also to shape its content in terms of technical and innovation challenges. So this will be a joint document for 3 communities, so the AI, the data, and the robotic community. And basically, we will build upon the 2nd version of the SRIDA. And this is the table of content that is shown in the slide. And we are reporting here the new table of content indeed. So the main point that we have to work on in these days, in these months, concern the deep dive sections. So basically the new SRIDA will contain 3 sections, one for data, one for robotics, and one for AI, that will try to set up the technical and innovation challenges in these 3 fields. So at the moment, there are 3 deep dive teams that are working on these 3 sections that follow a similar structure, and that will basically outline what are the technical and innovation challenges in these 3 areas. For shaping these 3 deep dive sessions, just one back, Anna, thank you. So for shaping these 3 deep dive sessions, we need to engage with a wider ecosystem. So we are running a consultation process to collect input. The input will be collected by using basically a set of guiding questions that have been defined following the structure of this document to obtain input on all the parts of the document. So the engagement process will be explained later by Anna, but so my message here is that we really need your engagement for shaping a document that is inclusive, that covers all the aspects that are relevant for Europe. So yeah, thank you, Anna. In terms of timing, the first baselining phase has started in May for setting up the process, the timings, for dividing the responsibilities. And the team in charge of this baselining process is called Transformation Team. This transformation team involves members from BDVA, Robotics, EURAI, Claire, and Ellis, and is basically a decision body that guides the PPP until its foundation. So now we are in the second phase. That is the phase that is devoted to content production through outreach activities and engagement of member states, other PPPs, other strategic initiatives. So we have, as I said, we have defined a set of guiding questions for collecting input, and we will glue everything together. So we have had 2 info days. One has been held on the 16th of July, and this one is basically a repetition of the first one for engaging more people. And we need really to collect feedback for the end of August so that we are able to create this new document in September for approval of the transition team and of course the Commission. Okay, so now we move to a little bit more to the deep dive section to give idea of their scope in terms of technological and innovation challenges. So I will start with the AI part, and then I will leave the floor to Sonia and David that will cover the data and robotics areas respectively. Okay, so for what concerns artificial intelligence, we of course all know that AI can bring strong benefits to all vertical sectors, as also has been outlined in previous slides, but also on government, sustainability, society, to obtain really social innovation. So of course, I mean, for responding to the previous question on fundamental research, these benefits, this innovation will be achieved by using, of course, existing AI technology, bringing to no vertical sector, but it's essential that we also work on fundamental research that we are really able to bring a long-term impact to Europe. And indeed, I mean, the research ecosystem that is already active in Europe is really an ecosystem of excellence. So we are going to strengthen this ecosystem and perform also fundamental research. So the PPP will work on all aspects of artificial intelligence. So there is an overarching area that needs research and innovation, and it concerns the design and operation of AI systems that are trustworthy and human-centric, has been stated and underlined in the white paper on artificial intelligence. So trustworthiness can really be both a challenge and an opportunity for you to get back in the game, basically, and it's a cornerstone of the European strategy. As I said before, it is widely mentioned in the white paper. So trustworthiness encompasses features like explainability, often achieved, for example, by merging symbolic and sub-symbolic techniques, fairness, robustness. So these are very important aspects that are in a way overarching. So for all the research that we are and innovation that we are performing in artificial intelligence. So, of course, other areas that will be covered by the PPP are, of course, all areas related to AI, machine learning, of course, encountering technological and organizational access to data, and issues related to knowledge representation. There is a quest for small data learning, not just big data learning, for continuous learning, transfer learning, that will remain on the agenda together with the quest for efficient architectural design. Besides machine learning, we need to cover all areas of AI, including reasoning and decision making. So they encompass optimization, search methods, and the combination of perception, learning, and reasoning. So the PPP part of, the AI part of the PPP will cover all major areas that are included, but of course not limited to planning and scheduling, learning and reasoning, knowledge-based system, as well as application to vision, speech processing, natural language processing, decision support systems. So all these techniques and application can bring important benefits to all industrial verticals as well as social innovation. So basically for AI, this is all. So I will leave the floor to Sonia now for the part concerning data.
Thank you, Michela. Yeah, thank you. So in a nutshell, for the data research challenges, the underlying thought is about that success in data-driven application relies that we have high quality data, and that achieving high quality data does not cost so much, so that we are able to ensure that this goes in an efficient manner. This includes, several areas or challenges. The first one is privacy by design. So all the privacy preserving technologies, they need to scale up and they need to be available. This also includes, we talked about the data sharing, data access and data sharing, and we need to ensure that technologies are available that support overcome the barriers. This includes, on the one side, that we have data governance frameworks, so that ensure that all parties, so all the different stakeholders which are along the data value chain, are able to share the data assets, and that they also trust it. So they can share the various data sources in a trusted manner. So here that we have data governance technologies available, frameworks available. And this also includes a European data space. So this is seen as key enabler for ensuring data-driven AI, that we have mechanisms in place that allow the creation of data value chains that then again can lead to new business opportunities. And all those will use a mix of data sources, right? It's about personal data, non-personal data. It's about closed data, it's about open data, proprietary data. So in order to handle the data sharing of these different data sources, techniques need to be available. Then we also, focus area will be about the handling of unstructured data. So basically that we ensure that means for extracting meaningful insights out of unstructured data. And this includes a wide range of areas like language. We have so many different languages in EU, so these NLP techniques will be of high relevance. Images, processing, video, text, sound. So basically that we have a lot of technologies in this area. We need to also ensure means that can combine the data insights with domain knowledge. So one aspect will be to combine all the symbolic and non-symbolic approaches to advance this area here. Then an additional area will be distributed data analytics, so to ensure that all the data which is at the edge, that we have scalable and reliable approaches to work with all the distributed data. And then last but not least, that we support that all the data and AI systems that we support, that they can be federated so that these systems can easily work together and that they can scale. So this is in a short nutshell the central research and innovation challenges, and they will be, then I can lead over to David.
Sonia, thank you. So in terms of the robotics deep dive, obviously we'll be covering the whole spectrum of robotics. On the left-hand end of the slide, you can see the core technologies that impact in robotics, mechatronics, sensing and perception of obviously environments and physical things in warehouses or wherever. Decision-making, which obviously very often on robotics has to be on the platform, which is moving around. It can't be distributed very often, and principally interaction. So both interaction with the environment, physical interaction with the environment, but also interaction with people, with the operators and the users. And obviously all of these areas integrate AI, and they integrate AI to create what we describe as physical intelligence. So this is a very different forms of AI and different ways of using AI within robotics to create combine systems which can interact both with the environments and with people in both safe and intuitively physical ways, which are obviously very important for robotics, that we keep the safety, we keep the trustability, that people who are using the robot can understand the behavior that it is exhibiting, and that behavior is predictable, and it is able to carry out a useful function. As has already been said, we obviously the robotics cuts right the way across every single market sector in the same way that all the other technology areas, data and AI, do. So it has this characteristic of a common cross-domain characteristic in robotics. But also we deal with particularly the things that go into the platforms, into the robotic system. So that's both the physical platform where the robot is integrated. It is also around the knowledge tools, because robots don't work in isolation. They work in conjunction with knowledge around the environment, or knowledge supplied to them by external or internal sources. And also they're typically built from multi-stage components. So the physical hardware is often built from multiple suppliers and multiple components. There needs to be compatibility, and so we deal a lot with modularity standards and things like that, but also design tools. So there are quite considerable design tools that go into robotics, and again, if we're building in trustability, we're building in privacy, these things need to go by design. And so these are very, very critical parts of what we need to look at in terms of the integration between AI and robotics, and data and robotics, and how these come together. Also within the partnership, as we've already said before, we will be dealing with infrastructure, and infrastructure is pretty critical in robotics, because we need those regulatory sandboxes, which are obviously physical, whether that's a smart city, or it's an oil rig, or it's a mine, or it's a hospital, or wherever it happens to be. In order to be able to test out robotics in those environments requires considerable investment in not only instrumenting those spaces, but also making sure that the tests are repeatable, that we have certification processes, that the regulatory environments then allow businesses to take over and put into the environment and into the market products and services which are valid and viable. So we're concerned right across the spectrum, from technology at one end, where our main goals often are to make things faster, cheaper and better, all the way through the design and construction of the platforms, through to the deployment into the end market space. So there is a considerable range of different activities that will take place under the umbrella of the partnership. So I'm going to hand over now, I think, back to Anna to talk about how you can engage with the new partnership.
Thank you, David. So very quickly, we would like to inform you how you can engage with the partnership. So there are different channels, and of course there are different interests. First, to tell you, you have any generic questions, or you would like to receive ongoing communications, or you just want to engage generically. If you go to the website, and you have here the link, but we will send it on the email to all participants. There is a form. You can fill in the form and tell us what is your interest, or what is your question, and we are reacting to all the questions and comments that we are receiving. So this is a first way to engage. Second, very important for today, contributions to this strategic research and innovation deployment agenda. So also in the partnership website, in the resources area, you have all the documents you need. First, you have the current consultation version, that is the base. And second, you have a template that you can look at already and download that includes all these guiding questions that Michela explained before. And it's a template that you can fill in and send us by the end of August. So there is a deadline on the 28th of August. It's quite an extensive template, so of course focus in those areas that are your main, cover your main expertise or areas of your interest. And we are very interested in receiving as many contributions as possible from you all. Of course, if you are part of any of the participating communities, BTBA, Claire, Ellis, EuroAI, or Eurobotics, please engage also through these communities that have already developed or will develop engagement possibilities for the members and the communities. I just want to finalize. We are receiving since the last information session a lot of questions and connection through these channels. And we are getting connected not only by companies and individuals, but also by communities. And this is a very important topic. You can also, if you represent a community, European or a national community, industrial or research in any of the areas or AI, data and robotics, you can also contact us, for instance, through, please reply to the consultation. Second, you can use the this form, and we will contact you back to see what is the best way to collaborate together towards the future. So please don't hesitate to contact us through any of these channels, or many of you have also our email addresses, so we will be at your disposal for discuss any way forward. That's all for me. And I hand it back to Thomas.
Yes, I'm again here, and many thanks, and many thanks to participants in this meeting. I just checked a little bit in parallel the questions, of course, like mentioned before, the information and documents and let's say the questionnaire, the engagement process and so on will be available via the web page. As said before, we will put also to be with your questionnaire inside and answering as good as we can. Maybe I pick up one question which I can maybe answer. Who's coming fast? On verticals, for sure, there was a question how to elaborate more on the vertical. So we are in contact with a different association and will include them. I have seen one other question. I hope that Federico or Cecilia's insights regarding the associated countries which are inside. Maybe Cecilia you can answer. And I think Federico, there are questions regarding how the relation to the European data space, European Science Cloud can look like. Maybe it's a good question for you, Federico, to fulfill. And maybe Cecile and Federico, some kind of the timeline, because there was also a question about when the first calls are coming out and how we build it up. So maybe first to Cecile regarding the associated countries.
Yeah, unfortunately, thanks, Thomas. Unfortunately, I don't see the questions, but I assume you want to know
is Switzerland part, for example, this was a
of the to be honest, I don't know the latest development in terms of which countries are part of Horizon Europe versus Digital Europe program, but for sure that will be published, and I would expect that for Horizon Europe we will have similar agreement than for Horizon 2020. I know that in the preparation work of Digital Europe program, the Switzerland and Norway, for instance, are in the discussion, but no, when it comes to the agreement itself, as far as I know, nothing has been concluded yet. So I would invite you to follow the publication regarding that. But I would say that the overall strategy should not be limited to that. This is the strategy for Europe, and then we will see which mechanism we can use to make it happen, including as well the national initiatives, and see how they fit in the overall structure. So that is something that we will develop. But I would not limit the activities, because some of them might not be part of the associated partners. You also know that we had also the possibility to participate in our program as third countries as well in Horizon 2020. So let's see how it will be implemented in Horizon Europe. No, the timeline is we wanted to have the adoption of the program, I think, beginning of next year. But before that, it takes quite a while to have the text adopted. This is why we want to have already a first version of the programs early in September, and I'm talking about Horizon Europe and Digital Europe programs. So we have to propose a first draft already at the beginning of September. This is why the sooner we have input from the community, the better it is to see how the different element can guide us as well for the different parts of the program. So that would be the answer from my side, and Federico might as well bring his answer to this element as well. Thanks.
Thomas, Cecile, this is Anna. Federico had to leave the meeting at 11.
Okay, not a problem.
So he's not available anymore.
No, not a problem. Maybe they're not trying to answer this regarding the European data space cloud initiatives. I can tell you only that we are from the association contact in a very strong cooperative way. So we are collaborating heavily with this initiative only to answer some of the question. There was an additional answer, and I want not to use much of your time because we're running a little bit over. First of all, the webinar is recorded. It was one question. Second issue, I've just looked inside the Euro HPC, for example, that Switzerland and on the Horizon 2020, and for example, other countries are included in the program. Just when you're looking up, and that was still mentioned, crossing the fingers and expectations that it's going also in a similar way. And as said before, of course, local initiatives, because I get also a question from other countries about local initiative. Of course, more than willing and happy, and I highly appreciate to cooperate with, which we are doing anyway. So feel free to contact me or us via the webpage, and we're trying to answer, as said before, also a lot of unanswered questions up to now. I apologize for this because it's kind of running in parallel via our webpage. We have said before, and the community, all the documents will be available. So I would now say we are 5 minutes over time. Many thanks. And as said before, we are targeting an open, collaborative environment also on behalf of the 5 actors which you see here, but like said, also we are in contact with industry association for verticals, with local initiatives, and looking forward that we really can something, and I'm very sure that we can do something very good with a high impact in Europe. Okay, so maybe Cecile, last famous word from your side.
A big thank you for the teams who have already done a lot of work to draft, and to you, Thomas, for having driven this big initiative, and the different components. I mean, the different association and groups behind it, and where we expect a big engagement as well. So it's a lot of work, and we expect as well engagement of all the auditors here to, so please do contribute. Please become a member of the association. We need you. We need a community to all together build this partnership and build this strategy and implement it and make it happen in Europe. So thanks for all your work. We are there to help you.
Okay, so many thanks to all of you. Many thanks, Cecile. And as said, there's a huge team and a lot of work behind us. So you see only some of the people now, and looking forward because we have really something promising ahead of us. Thanks a lot, and I want now to close the meeting. Enjoy the day and the remaining week. Bye-bye.